Hello and welcome to the video. In this video we will review a game where Magnus Carlsen has the black pieces against Anish Giri, and he employs one of my favorite openings. Now this was played in the first round of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. In each round we have a matchup, in this case Giri against Carlsen. In total there are 8 players, and in each round we have a matchup and they play 4 rapid games. So sort of a mini match during the day, and well, the winner takes the point. If they're tight, they're going to play a blitz tiebreak. And they also get cash prizes for each win. So, a lot of things at stake here. So this is the third game in the mini-match. The first 2 were drawn. And after e4, we see Magnus Carlsen employ the French defense, e6. I like to see that. I've been an exponent of the French defense for basically more or less all of my career. So my favorite opening, definitely. And d4, d5. And this is interesting, of course, because Anish Giri has a course on Chessable on the French defense, so he knows how things are too as well. And he plays e5, the advanced variation. We have c5 for Magnus, and we follow the main moves here. And here the queen b6 is the most popular move, the move that I usually play. But bishop d7 is also very flexible. In that case, if bishop d3, as indicated by the red arrow, then we can take on d4, play queen b6, then play that line. If you like those lines, you can sort of wait and see what white does. In this game, Giri went for bishop e2. Now we don't have to play the queen, we can play knight g2, e7. If white were to take on c5, we play knight g6, and we win one of the pawns right back, so no worry about that. Castles, and now Magnus took on d4 and increased the pressure on the d4 pawn. Giri went on with development, knight c3. If g4, which is definitely a move that has been played, then we sort of benefit from the placement of the queen on d8 because we protect the knight here. And the game continues and takes on a different character. Knight c3, rook c8, rook to the open file, the most common move in the position. And now a prophylactic move by Giri, king h1. And this is in no way prophylaxis against some ghost threat on the a7 g1 diagonal, as I saw someone mention, but this is indeed prophylaxis, but it's made so that the d4 pawn will be indirectly defended. Now what do I mean by that? In the game, Magnus went a6. Let's imagine he increases the pressure on the pawn, plays queen b6, which is a normal way to increase the pressure. Then in some cases, let's say we play rook b1, just to demonstrate. In this case, we might be able to take with the c knight on d4, but if we get a position, let's say we can play g4 and not hang the b2 pawn, and black takes like this. Now we can play bishop e3. And this knight doesn't have a square. If bishop c5, we play knight a4, and there's a pin. And now we see why king h1 was played. Now the knight on d4 can't take on f3 or e2 with check. So the knight is just pinned and lost. So this is why king h1 is played. Magnus plays a6. And this is sort of an idea I think I will pick up from this game. Bishop g5 was played by Giri, which may or may not be best because, well, the queen probably wants to go here anyway, and very quickly he moved the bishop again, so maybe bishop g5 is not the best. Now we have this pressure, and we're threatening to take with the c knight because there's no bishop e3, the knight is here. Very important. If we take with the f knight, we might lose the knight on d4. So knight a4 and our queen a7, and this a6 move was probably played so that we can tuck the queen away on a7 and keep this pressure on the pawn on d4. Very interesting idea that I've never played myself. So now the pawn is actually attacked by the c knight, so Giri has to defend, bishop e3. Magnus gets on with development. Now a3, computer likes rook c1, and perhaps this gives black a little bit of a hook here to play around with after b5. And now, yeah, you see one of the ideas of putting the queen on b6 and a7, put the pressure on d4, and we're able to play b5. Magnus castles before continuing with active operations, and he doesn't want white to take on f5 when the d5 pawn is hanging. In some lines you can allow white to take on f5 and that's absolutely fine, but here Magnus takes on e3 and plays b4. Yeah, I want to briefly go back and mention that knight c5 is not really a move here because we can just take it and then take on e3. And then c5 drops and black is doing great. So back to the game, b5, knight c3, castles, bishop d3, knight takes e3, and b4. So now black is well ahead in his actions on the queen side. Usually black tries to play on the queen side in these lines. And probably Giri should have played bishop e1, and then we probably have a different game here. But he went for e4, which the computer doesn't like. And especially since black is able to sort of tactically take care of this pawn, takes on e4, take back, and then h6. The threat is to put something on g5, maybe this knight, and then we threaten knight f6 with the other one, and mate on h7, so h6 has to be played to stop knight g5. And black can't do that because he is indirectly protecting this. Now if we take with the queen here, something like this, we can take once and play bishop b5. We win the exchange. If we take with the rook, we can put the queen on the b file, b7 or b8, I'm not sure which one, but then we're protecting the b5 square. We can play bishop b5, and with all these pieces on this diagonal, that's not good for white. Also this pawn will be hanging. So rook after e1. Note that we're not really threatening bishop b5 because we can just take it because of the pin, but nonetheless, after the queen moves, we would be threatening to put the bishop on b5, so Giri gets out of the way. a5 now. We continue to attack the pawn, but bishop c6, and again we can ignore the threat to this pawn. Giri played queen f4. If he were to take on a5, we can again put something on the b file, probably queen b7, and now the bishop come to b4 is the problem, because we have a lot of pieces on this diagonal, as you can see. Rook, two rooks and a queen. So queen f4 was probably a mistake. Giri could have played knight f6 here, which seems to keep the balance. Probably king h8 by black, and then black is slightly better. But importantly, this probably can't be taken. If pawn takes, then we take on h6. If bishop takes, I guess you must track the pawns. White has really bad pawns, but some threats against the king. Might take on g7, might protect the pawn on f3. And yeah, white is probably very much alive here. So queen f4 is probably where things start to go south. Now a very clever move by Magnus. Once again, if you take on a5, there's bishop b4. The pawn is attacked, Giri defended it. But queen b8 also has a very cheeky point, and that is if you play knight f6. Well, you actually can't do that because you just take it. And now you see that the pawn on e5 is pinned, and the queen on f4 would simply be captured if you take on b8. On f6, sorry. So here Magnus is taken over, now a4, and we see this monster light squared bishop, and white simply doesn't have any meaningful threats on the king side. Play rook a to e1, and now he's in trouble at the bishop b4, and here Giri cracks. I guess he could have played knight d6 and the game sort of goes on, but after d5, it's just a one-way street. Magnus took on e1, stop the exchange here. And there's simply not enough with the king h8. There's no real good way to continue the attack. Giri took on d5, but then a nice finish by Magnus. Queen d2, attacking the rook, rook d1, and then rook c1. This is game over. Giri played knight c3, but simply queen e1 using the x-ray. The queen is defended through the other rook. And if you want to see another cool x-ray tactic, check out my immortal x-ray game, which I analyzed from the Icelandic Championship. Featured many nice x-ray tactics, none as easy as this one, and Magnus saw this one and won the game. So a nice start by Magnus, and I'll keep an eye on this tournament, and if I see some interesting games, especially now that we see that Magnus is playing the French, I will keep a keen eye on Magnus's games, and hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.